months of anticipation in the rough environment at the time of Asia being summer and all, it's finally time for my baby to come out. But to our surprise, 3 weeks prior, during my 37th week, I did see bleeding. As a result, we ended up going to the hospital just for a checkup to make sure nothing serious is wrong. But unfortunately, every minor contraction, even at the rate of 20 according to the monitor, our baby's heart rate would drop dramatically from 130 all the way down to 80, and I believe at one point even 60. I didn't even dare to look at the machine as it was beeping. It was just too nerve-wracking for a mom to be watching the monitor, and the more stressed I was, I feel like it's causing more harm to my baby than not. So at the time it was very stressful, and the fact that we were in Asia, the doctor literally stood there, okay, so I suggest you induce labor right now. So make up your decision. And I actually politely said, can we have a moment just so that my husband and I can talk about it and make a decision, because we really wanted a natural labor. But unfortunately, she was suggesting an induced labor, and I knew if things go south, we might have to have a C-section. The fact that my doctor booked a vacation 1 week after my expected due date, she was telling me to induce labor my entire time. So I didn't really feel confident when she was suggesting me to induce labor once again. I just didn't thought I was getting a fair opinion at the time, and I didn't have time to digest what was happening because everything happened so quickly. We went into the hospital around 2-ish, and everything just happened so fast. We had an emergency C-section around 6 or 7. It was just very confusing for me at the time. Along with the pressure my doctor was giving me, she's like, we can still attempt, let's just break the water, induce labor, and see how it happens. But the way I see it is that if she can't even handle a minor contraction, what makes her think she can handle a bigger contraction? And this is my first baby. What if it takes 10 hours? What if she makes it for most of the contraction? What if it's just one that she can't be strong enough for? So it was very interesting how actually the nurse of the hospital, not the doctor's nurse, the way they work it out in Hong Kong is very different. The nurse was saying how, you know what, another option is I would just give a C-section. That's what I did for my baby. So at the time when she mentioned that was very life-changing for me, just listening to someone who seems like she can't stand what the doctor was saying, and seems like she was just telling me an opinion from her personal experience. That was very different. And then I just said to my husband and everybody else that we had a minute, we finally forced her out, and then she said, you know what, I can't come back every time you have a scare or bleed or whatever. I just can't do it. You have to make up your decision at the time. But I still insisted that, what, can you give me a minute to think about it? So what ended up happening is we said we just want to monitor it once more, and if the results are not pleasing, what, we will make up a decision, So, and the second time around, that was when her heart rate dropped once again, even lower this time for a few minutes. So at the time I just kind of knew, what, I have to do this, we have to do this, let's go for an emergency C-section. Before I even realized, after epidural, after the shaking, after some serious pressure, although I didn't feel pain, of course I still felt pressure. So when they're pushing like this, it was very uncomfortable, but hearing the sound just make it worth it. The time I remember I got my epidural epidural, it was literally painless. I didn't feel anything. He was like, hey, you should hold your position this way. And I was like, oh, I can't bend any further. And then he's like, oh, I'm done. Literally, that was how it happened. I did have some unstoppable shaking during the surgery, but I guess everyone's reaction is different, but it was really, really unstoppable. They had to tie me down, both arms to the bed. But overall, after the C-section, I didn't feel much pain either for the recovery. The entire process, literally, the epidural, the surgery, and the recovery, I felt very little to no pain at all. I was very, very nervous. I have never had a surgery in my life, so I didn't know what to expect, and just visualizing how big the cut was very shocking to me. Holding my baby at the time and just focusing on how I wanted a successful breastfeeding session just kind of kept me going. And I still remember every 2 hours or so they would bring the baby along. For the first night, I was just so determined. I said, you know what, I would breastfeed and bring the baby along, although I just had the surgery. Come to think of it, I'm glad I did it, but I don't know if I would rush into it the same way I did because at the time I was still under shock mentally and physically, not having been through this at all. It was very demanding. I literally did not sleep. Like, it's not like I can sleep and then wake up. I literally pretty much stayed awake the whole night, and that was quite demanding. My husband ended up getting sick right after. So just coming to think about it, breastfeeding obviously is a choice, and to a lot of moms, it's highly recommended experience. And it's great for the baby, but it's not the end of the world to sometimes supplement a little bit. The baby, they learn, they're very strong anyway. So I think I was a little bit too stressed out at the time with trying to make everything perfect and everything go exactly as planned. But with a baby, you just can't do that anymore. And oh boy, was I glad when I heard my baby cry for the first time afar. I still remember we had all these dreams and hopes of, hey, can we delay cutting the umbilical cord? Can we do this and that? But at the time, it was obviously very intense and sensitive moment. All the doctors were alert. We're just glad, she was okay when she came out. And it's kind of interesting how they didn't find out the cause at all as to why her heart rate dropped. The only thing they said was something about the placenta falling out very fast immediately after she was out. So who knows? And one more interesting fact about what happened was the next day, my baby actually during the nighttime, she actually puked blood back out. They didn't tell me at the time, they only told me the second morning of when the doctor was here. They ended up monitoring and she puked it once, but that was it. So something must have happened, but we're just not sure what. Lots and lots of time, but maybe it's fine that you are so hard to find. I almost sense that they want you to listen. They are the professional, you just listen and go with the flow. Because at the time when she told me she was expecting a vacation February 13th, although my expected due date at the time was February 9th, I felt very uncomfortable. What if the baby's delayed and 2 weeks after the expected date is still a safe time to deliver naturally? She just said, you know what, we can induce, it's not a big deal, it's so easy. So when things did happen and when she suggested to induce my labor, I was very hesitant, and I still remember asking her, oh, if you're going to pass me along, if the baby doesn't come along and we don't induce, can I meet the doctor that you're going to transfer me to? And she actually rejected the suggestion of mine. She rejected me actually meeting the doctor at all. Obviously, it's a lot of money that we paid. We paid 150K Hong Kong dollar for this entire ordeal, and I think her salary alone was 40 or 50k Hong Kong dollar. So I know it's a business for her, but at the same time it's a human life. I would have appreciated it if she actually listened to us and was more considerate of our feelings.
I got a feeling you got a part to play. Just letting time between us slip away.
But we did it after all. The baby was sent to my room after they monitored me for approximately an hour. We started nursing, and the baby did have to go in the light box because she did have jaundice. And I still remember seeing a YouTuber video saying how she didn't want to leave without the baby. So what ended up happening was we paid an extra night for approximately $1,000 US so that we can leave together with the baby the following day. And looking at how small she is right now, she's already 8 months. At the time I'm making this video, I've been very delayed. I can't believe how small she is. We're almost forgetting the time when she was this young. Making these videos, it's actually a great reminder of what we've been through, how lucky and blessed we all are. Thank you again for tuning in and taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to our baby story. I just figured it might be interesting to share some more recent videos and pictures of our baby with you all. Until next time.